Sorry for party rocking, folks. Big shout out over to the Grind Line podcast one more time. I shout these guys out all the time. I've been on their show. They do some fantastic work. Why are they apologizing to me on Twitter? Well, it's because every time we have ourselves a major Steve Yzerman press conference, the Grind Line folks always go out there and give us the scoop. Here are the July 7th, 2025 Steve Yzerman press conference notes. And admittedly, this one's kind of shorter than all the other ones that we have seen. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's totally okay. This is what Steve Yzerman has to say in regards to the Detroit Red Wings and their drafting and free agency situation. Now, honestly, before we dive into all of this, I just wanted to make a brief overarching statement at the beginning of this video. I know a lot of Wings fans are going to be quite disappointed with the way Red Wings hockey has evolved over the past week and a half. Yes, there were some contract re-signings. Berggren's back, Soderblom's back, Kane is back. Okay, sure, there were 2 trades. John Gibson. Okay, awesome to see him in. Vladimir Tarasenko, he is out. Even though there wasn't any super significant, amazing, gobsmackingly big moves aside from the John Gibson trade, which, I mean, yeah, you can say it was a big move, but maybe not like the biggest of moves. There wasn't really much turnaround with the Detroit Red Wings and their roster. And I don't necessarily think that's Steve Yzerman's fault. I think it's more so a symptom of the market as a whole, how teams were re-signing players, how trades were getting made before the free agency period. Nobody from Florida went to free agency. John Tavares stayed in Toronto. Brock Besser stayed in Vancouver. Nick Ehlers just signed today with Carolina. Mitch Marner went to Vegas the day before free agency. So there wasn't really much to do outside of that. Either way, let's talk about Steve Yzerman and what he has to say in regards to the Red Wings and their acquisitions. John Gibson fills the net position. Jacob Bernard-Docker gives blue line depth, and he is young. We made videos about both of these guys getting added onto Detroit over the past few days. James van Riemsdyk adds offense to the bottom 6, and Mason Appleton plays on the PK and chips in a bit of the offense. They're building a checking line on the third line. JVR and Appleton. That'd be pretty good, actually. I like that a lot. To fans hoping that there were going to be bigger signings, the guys they wanted signed with their teams before free agency. Not much you can do about that. The Red Wings knew it would be difficult in free agency. There wasn't much high-end talent out there, so no shock at how it turned out. Yeah, there were rumors that the Detroit Red Wings would have been in on guys like, I don't know, maybe a Nick Ehlers, maybe a Brock Besser. Who knows? Maybe a Mitch Marner? Yeah, Marner to Detroit was never going to happen. I'm sorry. But this is ultimately the verdict. You can't sign guys that aren't available, and a lot of the guys ended up signing with their teams. Aaron Ekblad was apparently a big player for the Detroit Red Wings, but nah, he ended up sticking around in Florida at a pretty significant discount, too. Does Steve Yzerman expect trades? Possibly. They're going to see if opportunities arise. They're also waiting to see if teams need to shed salary or move bodies. Less likely this year, though, because the cap is going up. Will free agency change because the cap is going up and teams can spend? Yzerman says that with the cap going up, teams can try and lock up their core guys. He says he thinks they'll probably continue to see the trend of big-name players re-signing with their teams. And I think this is really interesting because, as it's been talked about on a bunch of radio shows and podcasts, for the first time in a long time, every NHL team essentially has money. And they have the opportunity to spend to the cap to re-sign the guys that they need to re-sign. And as a result, you're seeing this type of a free agent and NHL market where there just aren't too many options for movement. Outside of Vladislav Gavrikov and I guess you could say Mitch Marner, nobody's really moving for big dollars and big money. People are just staying put. Except for Ehlers, I guess. Steve Yzerman thinks that the Red Wings have a lot of flexibility and that JVR can play up and down the lineup. That'll depend on what Todd does. Todd has been looking at players like Steve with Steve, and he likes JVR's flexibility. Hey, I do too. JVR can score 15 goals on a year. Pretty good, eh? This is where Yzerman then starts talking about some of the younger dudes. On Nate Danielson, Steve doesn't want to rule out the idea that he could play with Detroit, but that's the possibility for several players. Do they sign a guy to hit 13, or do they leave the spot open to see if something comes up, or let a kid earn it? They don't want a young guy that has a higher ceiling coming in as depth when he could be playing some impactful time in Grand Rapids. Ah, a tale as old as time, the Red Wings taking their time with developing young dudes and not thrusting them into depth roles. You have to respect it at this point. It's always going to be there. Are there teams that Yzerman can see that need to move guys? Today, no, but it's possible over the next week or so. There are possibilities presented that they have some interest in, but they'll hold out for a bit and let things settle down, circle back next week. So Stevie Y is not rushing into anything here. That's totally fine as well. Having cap space gives them more trade options during the season, but just because they have the space doesn't mean they have to spend it now. The biggest need is a top 4 right D. Says that Albert Johansson was very effective on the second pair by sliding over, and they're also exploring their options there. I know a lot of Red Wings fans, going back over to this point, I know a lot of fans are kind of ticked off, hey, you have the cap space, why don't you use it? Well, that's the thing, what can you use it on? Unless you're signing an Ehlers or a Granlund or somebody, you're not really having those big opportunities to use them. Other teams aren't really in a big spot to trade away big money name players. It just doesn't really seem like the type of market for that. Is this team good enough to take a step forward, or do they need to add to improve? Stevie Y says he thinks the team today is constructed better and a little more competitively too. He expects growth out of the young guys as well to push the team. On Marco Kasper, Stevie Y says that Kasper was effective in all situations. He felt he was very confident. He's a really good all-around player and can really make a difference. They don't want to put too much pressure on him, but he's out there every day working. Steve thinks that he has another gear and will be a really good player. Yeah, I agree with that, man. Kasper's got that dog in him. Everyday working, baby, everyday working. On offer sheets, Stevie Y says that he hasn't focused on RFAs around the league. There were conversations around it, and he would consider it only if he had truly believed they would get the player. Everyone has cap space, so that situation is iffy. Most teams can match these days. There was a conversation about offer sheets with Bo and Byram earlier today. I was kind of debating if I wanted to make a video about that, but I was kind of like, maybe not, because offer sheets don't really seem to be a possibility in this NHL climate. So, yeah, I guess Stevie Y is saying pretty much the same thing here. He also says that with Vladimir Tarasenko, they were looking at JVR and saw JVR as a replacement for Vladdy. Cut the costs and kept the production or increased it, freeing up cap space as well to make another move. That's just smart business there by Stevie Y. JVR, of course, signing for a lot cheaper than Tarasenko. As far as Todd McClellan goes, Steve says there's a very positive vibe in the locker room with him. Is it the new coach bump? Time will tell, but it feels good right now. With guys in their prime and how does it shape the plan, Yzerman joked around that Marchand at 37 signed a 6-year deal, so he assumes he has around another 15 years on Dylan Larkin. He's not too concerned with the age of guys like Larkin and DeBrincat. They're great athletes who train hard and stay in shape. That, of course, is going to be talked about over the course of the next year if the Red Wings are not great. Dylan Larkin was drafted back in 2014, DeBrincat 2016, so these guys are in that age range where they are kind of a ways away from the Raymonds and the Kaspers. Yzerman also speaks highly of Elmer Soderblom and his deployment. As guys move in, they keep sticking with it. The free agency situation this year was not conducive to bringing in a high-level player. There then is a discussion on the third goalie. Something to consider right now, it's Cam and John, Kosa and Pastava in Grand Rapids. They'll juggle it and see what happens. He also says that he didn't really get a chance to watch a ton of development camp. Cleary and Horkoff do a great job. Good to see the kids that have progressed over the year. Yzerman then talks about the 84-game season. It makes perfect sense and provides more balance. Dropping to 4 preseason games is a bit of a challenge, though, to balance the veterans getting reps and evaluating prospect readiness. Stevie says, though, they will manage it. Can ASP challenge for a spot in camp? Steve says he'll wait and see. He's not going to rule out anybody. But for ASP, he was so good in the SHL, and preseason games are tricky. Vets are playing to play but not going all out. He can answer it better at the end of training camp. And finally, is there a level of frustration when you have all the tools to get a big player but the pathways aren't there? Not really. It's been his experience over the years that things don't work themselves out and opportunities eventually come out. You have to be diligent and patient, waiting for the right player. You have to use the futures wisely and make sure that player is going to have a positive impact long term. Big like over here to the Grind Line guys post. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Steve Yzerman's press conference on this day here? What are your thoughts on the overall procedure of the Detroit Red Wings heading into this upcoming year? And are you satisfied so far? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.